My name is Papa B. So in Ghana, my name law firms. I think 3 law firms. Juma and Sana. Me go full time to me practice. But for over 8 years, I've been either officially or unofficially been part of the legal team of Yenuya Anas Aremeyaw Anas. Esan say Juma o no my natural disposition what I understand say being a lawyer is no say we are always supposed to guard the constitution. A constitution and only the foundation of emra. And so you believe in that now. Your job is to always protect those who are vulnerable, and I say those who are maligned, and I say those who are the underdogs, because Omuna Emran Kasa is designed to protect. And naturally, it engenders a lot of backlash. To say he does things that it exposes people, and when you expose people's secrets, you become unpopular sometimes. And I say people try to sort of get back at you, and I say revenge. And naturally, like I said, I was say Emrano. Being a lawyer is our number one function is to be the protectors of the Constitution. And our Constitution, like I said, it exists to protect the weak and the vulnerable in the society. Naturally, I guess we gravitated toward each other, and over time, I gained the trust. Say, minimajuma na obetimi ajimi edi say bibinia obetimi atunasa afreme. We have been in this relationship, and along the way, over the years, a few years back, we've worked on several things that doesn't need to be public. Number 12 say, I was sort of one of the legal eyes before it came out, where I pointed certain things out to him, and then dealing with the backlash. So that's basically what I do. I'm actively litigating cases in Ghana. Most of my work is in commercial courts, in the human rights court. And that's basically who I am. Me papa, ne me mame, omutina kromwa but sisi omuti Ghana. Me unuanum mienu, me unuanum miensa, sorry. Baku wa Ghana, ana mienu kromwa baku kra was Cincinnati, Ohio here.
Well, that's comprehensive.
Yeah.
Me name say a Chacha say it's in a yo, and yes, we are live from Columbus. And as a walker,
yeah. Ohio dear me fear. The Hanam J, my first driver's license, and until Ohio dear me fear. Minion more Cleveland, ne Akron, Ohio, Bibri. Now Columbus on so sad, me no more than able to 4 more around.
It depends on the flower common to people around here, people in Ghana, and your friends around the world.
I wouldn't say Ghana a culture, and idea.
What our guy names be? Boy, yeah, it's only.
Maybe Selasi no be a different. Even though say my official first name my government document, so Evans. But over the years, everyone has just known me as Selasi. Now Ghana knows so the boys no more from law. You boys are more all the areas Abilene Page or Louis Legon boys no more Ghana or more from law.
My main sign and Kaibium year also practice both in the US and in Ghana.
And at the moment there I'm not practicing in the US, but I started off practicing here in the US, in Georgia, but now my primary focus is Ghana, because I believe says we be not you need to focus. And even though I come in and out of the US often, I think Ghana is where I am needed most, because Ghana is a very young country, and I know when I'm shy, bitumenya inimdia, bitumidi build the country, not always in politics, at least not to begin with. My focus right now, and I say I'll use my talents and my knowledge and my efforts to help build our democracy, because like I said, I started off in political science into politics, so but I also understand we are a very young democracy. Into more political experience, we can really help in building our democracy. Ghana is a very young country. I mean, Ghana is at 60 years old. Ghana has not always had the fairest educational system. Ebi kwama omo anyame hira omo with a gift that ebi omo betumi aboa omo ano. Nti no that's one of my passions say say bibi befia betumi e aboa ebi do no because Ghana there Ghanaians are known to be some of the most intelligent people in the world. Kruma utna ha unim say call all the almost everywhere you go, you know, in the governance system, whether the waterworks department, the engineering department, you see Ghanaians functioning and doing wonderful things. Omunye hu say we Ghanaian. Sounds me a lawyer no, na me a lot of courthouses na. And yeah, it is cool to be African in America no. Na hey wo no na we were ambassadors. Baby okobia na okase ufri baby a ubo obra ya. You are basically a representative of your country. Me kai say Cleveland, Ohio area okra na Ghana phone sheda enu ho. Nti no say na me kai pa say Yura Mohammed Ibn Chambers oje dini pa edin papa pa wo Cleveland, Ohio in the legal community say
Chambers, former NDC minister, MP for Bimbila, right?
For law school of Cleveland, yes.
Okay.
You know, that's basically who I am.
I just wanted to draw that line and bring clarity to the position relative to whether or not you practice in the US and in Ghana, because then going forward, may try to connect the practice here in Ghana and the practice here in the US. And the practice in Ghana.
I currently don't practice in the US.
But you did before.
Yes, I did previous.
So
yes,
I still would have cause to be able to draw a line.
Oh, absolutely.
So, lawyer, the purpose for this discussion is actually about Honorable Kennedy Japan, Aremeyaw defamation case, the hula baloo, the back and forth, the story, the information, the misinformation, the disinformation, the uncertainties that have engulfed the situation. Of course, from where I sit, anything, everything, news and us is controversial, depending on who is looking at it from what divide of the argument. And so, as a journalist who has followed these exploits over the years, I'm not surprised. So, even at this point, there's this argument, there's this debate, but me per se yebenya mrena yachre insem sanye ese fata ubetumi amayen na ye tiefo ne ahwefo the core comprehensive background to this journey of where we have reached relative to the case in court. Just a background, brief background.
Okay. Until like I said, no, my client and I say and Aremeyaw and no, he doesn't work. He works through a company, Tiger IPI. And you know, they do a lot. So typically, you know, they have a lot of legal eyes that need to be paying attention to what is going on concerning the business. And I pay Ukraino. We share a press release about outer a refute a statement that was made on Ghana Web by Bishop Obinim. And you know, we are always out there, being that it's a media practice. You know, it's an investigative journalism company. We keep an eye out for everything that concerns the business or the company. Sorry, and also the individual interest of Anas Aremeyaw Anas. It's, you know, we stay in constant contact. Sometimes, you know, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. We deal with several things that come in. Some, you know, will require legal action. Some will require strategic action. It's, you know, I think somewhere number 12 no buy no. And then somewhere called so, and all the statements that were being made, we basically kept track of everything, and we filed them away where they needed to be filed. Those that needed to be actionable, you know, were acted upon by other people. In this case, I think Saukra, you probably participated in some of that. Now, we continue to keep track of everything, like I said, even a paper so I think 2022, is when Anas sent me some video a circulating on, I think, Facebook and YouTube. Now Busam say me hwehwe mu na ne wo mu no me manin hu ne wo mu. Now the way I am trained, no say bibisa no, we write a memorandum from a legal perspective. Or anyone more lawyer, they understand what I mean by that. What you do is to spot issues, legal issues, like what idea, whatever you are evaluating, whether it's a written material and I say audiovisual material, no, you find out, we move from issues of whether it's authentic to whether there are defamatory statements that have been made in there that need to be addressed, and whether So when I got a hold of the video, I put it through the same analysis that has been systemized in law practice, because my training shows me say before outside of say will be answer on a question or say to be especially take an action in court now, it needs to stand on all fours. Just say we pass it through a test. Say engineer and pass it through the test, which means say when you use the analogy of a table now. Engineer enough for now, so why we don't move. I don't care, because because in the US we take ethics very seriously, and that's where my training starts from. I take ethics very seriously, so we don't file frivolous cases, we don't file speculative cases, and the firm that I started my training in, they are very they take that very seriously. That has stuck with me. I don't care how sensational it may be, and I say I'll tell you the hard truth. Say as I some way and baby, and I mean sika, and I say just because you have come through my door, I'll tell you the truth, because I believe that sometimes even if I don't make money from someone who has a problem, a relationship is very important, and you don't know when that would turn into something. It's always best to tell people who are in need of your advice the truth. So I looked at the video, and I said I actually wrote a memorandum. We go through the steps of what I see on the video, what it means, where it is actionable, including say, in this case, we noticed that this was happening in the US, which, like I said, I kind of know the way the rules work, even though I've never held a license in New Jersey. Your training in the US, it's not state specific. Sort of general, the way American law is built on doctrines, and the doctrines don't change from state to state. The specifics may change in terms of when it gets to the state legislature now. They make some changes based on the historical context of the states, some of the time the political control of the states, and when say is between Democrats and Republicans. So some of the laws might be more liberal, or some of them might be on the conservative side. So those are the nuances that you have to know in order to be able to navigate. So, and I also have a very good friend in New Jersey, Menoko Law School. Unfortunately, he was not able to come on board for this case, but he assisted very much in the initial stages. We did the analysis, and the conclusion was that what was on the video was actionable in the US, because
Wait, let me take you back a little bit.
Okay.
Video being our reference.
There was a video that was published by the Announcer newspaper. I believe the gentleman's name is Daddy Fred. His government name.
And that video contained what?
An interview between Yapapa Kennedy Japan and the host of the Announcer newspaper, a friend of Daddy Fred.
Conducted where?
In the state of, I believe, I don't know exactly where Daddy Fred is. He's in the US.
Where was that interview conducted?
Oh, from the Honorable Kennedy Japan's home in New Jersey. In fact, he states it on the video, say, New Jersey.
Okay, so this is like Daddy Fred's show, interviewed Honorable Kennedy Japan.
Yes.
From Kennedy Japan's home in New Jersey.
Yes.
Okay, and then that contained what were the seminar who study bring it to this position we are in right now.
In the context of time, around that time, now I'm a big. I like to say this. Papa no, obi a yeti America bia no. I would deep politics if you know. Your papa was like the first.
Your papa in Honorable Kennedy Japan.
Honorable Kennedy Japan. He was the first person who said free America echo Ghana, and he carried himself as a commoner on school assembly, and he was very vocal in his early career, early political career. Very few people can tell you say very few people who want to see Ghana improve can tell you say back in the day they were not fans of Honorable Kennedy Japan, because our culture is a culture of sort of silence coming from military rule. To be a vocal piano, you can't help. But if you have the disposition we have, and let's just say we are looking for change, and if you're a young man, those of us in our 40s, I can tell you, say I'm very because I have friends that I grew up with, and everybody was a huge fan, and I believe some of them are still huge fans of the Honorable Kennedy Japan. And I like to put that on the table because maybe some people in Ghana we have a problem with being straightforward sometimes. Sometimes we mix our emotions with facts. And I say that just to say we do this dispassionately, and or time be, and I say it's not a fight. I'm a professional, and that's the reason why we are moving the way we are moving. And Komoni Muno, say Honorable Kennedy Japan, I think he had been missing in action for a while. There were rumors about his health around that time. I don't know if you recall, there was a time in Ghanaian politics where people were speculating and saying all kind of things. To the point, I don't know, so no one or put stuff out, but there were videos circulating. I think something of him proving that he's doing well, where he was dancing in front of his house or something like that, So it was right around that time. And if you listen to the interview, you can see that it was on a backdrop of that. People were gossiping about him, that he's, they were saying all kinds of things about him. So I believe it was against that backdrop he sought to clear the air that he's doing well. Now when him say after the number 12 video and someone see Ghana Anas was basically a top of mind for the Honorable Kennedy Japan, owing to some of the things that he said on the court to Ghana. So from that point I've seen it's almost as if to me making statements without addressing Anas, and the Ghanaian public have also fed into that. I'm aware he had made statements that were already in court. Obviously, it'll be OT news or Anas or kind papers behind him. So in that interview, I give that. I say that just to give context to what was right. on and we'll share transcripts of
I can appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll share transcripts. And that was what was going on. It looked like. And now it makes a lot of sense because it has become apparent. Say he has presidential ambitions. To say party, he needed to, stake a claim inside of the party, which is consistent with whatever happened in the aftermath of number 12. Because there are statements that have been made suggesting that he did what he did in terms of coming out to speak of Anas and Aremeyaw Anas because of some of the damning stuff that was said on the raw footage of the audiovisual evidence that number 12 was produced from, some of which actually played out in the court in New Jersey. And I think not long into the conversation, and asked him up in the conversation. Now, since now in my expert opinion, it is actionable because if there's no proof, say, and as I say, it's a very dangerous job, and baby, I withdrew. This is the time, perhaps, he will be reaping the real benefits of what he has been doing over the years. And just say, internet, has broadened the horizon for everybody who is doing anything in the media space. Internet, I think his popularity has soared. Maybe free Ghana, but internet at that moment, there's nobody in the US who doesn't know of Anas. And I can tell you, I think it's the whole continent of Africa, all young people in Africa, and even in Peninfo, the world over, because he has been awarded all over. Even President Obama cry abonabaso, and part of the legal team's responsibility is to make sure that we keep his reputation solid, because it's not it's not that we protect it. Sorry, not keep it solid. So being solid or not, that stems from his own character. But our job is to make sure say obi angu no ho fi and I say company no ho fi. You know, you share in semi so no, as much as I said, so I have deep affection for the Honorable Kennedy Japan, who I have never met, by the way, until recently I saw him in the courthouse in New Jersey. I still am in Indian Komo. We have made eye contact, but I'm in Indian Komo still. So it was very difficult. It was a very difficult thing for me, but that's part of what being a professional is. And you know, I gave the advice accordingly. And as I see in Nas now, a lawyer, he's very involved in a lot of what goes on. He's a very intelligent and knowledgeable lawyer. Then you'll be our whatever you think actually, who cast some channel and that's all the two people so you are rest assured so making kind. And honestly, I've worked with a lot of people, but I haven't worked with anybody who really pays attention to detail. Patch say document crap out no say yeah brofono so and I say period be I'm see baby and I say come be free baby we will do it all over.
So in this interview while we're referencing if you would highlight Ben and Namufi say a go announce Mufi and Timothy this journey.
In simply be a course, it seems say he was very comfortable referring to Anas as a criminal. And criminal is by law Adibia Ofrobia.
So when you say more from interviewing, you picked up your friend is saying.
So afraid union Anas
no. I mentioned I'm a renfree. Criminal.
Yeah. And in the conversation, he also at some point he also said, "Oh yeah, thief." We use the word thief.
Thief.
Now, Sansoka say we cook Chinese for be. Na no emremu no se microphone dos at that point no. Oh, America been no mercy no a serial killer.
Okay, to a Chinese for that was the third one, and then they also near Nibio.
Anna I met Swale. Now oye Jumama Tiger Aya so a few years ago no say no Anas no any movie just suggesting say perhaps on no be partner say you know he was not specific but he left it in a open. It's also someone is involved in the murder of someone as a legal professional no either the person, if I'm a prosecutor, I'm charging and the evidence is true, I'm charging the person with murder and conspiracy to commit murder. So that's the lens through which we looked at that.
Okay, so idea BM Naka, criminal, thief, wakun Chinese for and no who we can say I may swallow we no. A quite be so not such as an ass who said that's on Ukuno and our Kobopa and our Kobofa will be so whichever way no not just an ass who these are the things that okay was interview now. Oh yeah, and no, I
think said that's those are what he said that we reduce to costs of action.
Okay, so not when you know and someone lawyers and more share video no movie say na egu Anas ehufi. Enti no na ye nyina so a enti mo call court.
Yes.
Na obi bebusa say ora Kennedy Japan or ye Ghanani Anas or ye Ghanani na eye den na Ghana for me no enya asem na asem no America ha na mo de besia court because the case case ni kan court or Ghana ma Anas di mu for and the didi mu nti no my enchiremu kakra because this is a question many people have asked.
Yes. What's KBBCC and I think it's important that we distinguish that and I say you church at that point no. Okay, say case no ekodi kan court or Ghana. I say that's not accurate because that's not the same case. Every time I will be one no say okan will be one asem say egu no hu fia it's a separate incident nipanitimi so edo court. And that we saw it as a different case. Right? Now case every case the first thing they will teach you a law school and say answer na waka so do court the question is say hey na order no court asem no court no one home to me say uti asem no edi asem no earlier on also can say in the video we notice say ya papa Kennedy Honorable Kennedy Japan e can say o ni fie o New Jersey or kasa Now I think it's a part of the controversy and say binum ka say be to me by America na say BBC. So he sought to debunk that. And in the process, he made the admission, say he was making these statements, you have outlined, he was making them from his house in the state of New Jersey, specifically, West Orange, New Jersey. It's I'm a fair BB jurisdiction, and I say before we decide say will be a gunfiana, so be a you'll be on the court. Lawyer be on him a lawyer be a catch say. The first thing is saying between these assembly. Now here it has two components. Back over brought from a friend of jurisdiction, and the other one a friend of venue. And we have to answer those questions. The Honorable Kennedy Japan statement now make itself concept from Onwani Fear with the state of New Jersey. Emma, you will say yes, there is jurisdiction in New Jersey, because Onwani answers to say Onwani Fear. And jurisdiction, it can arise in two ways. Based on conduct, accident, there's jurisdiction here. And the same way, there's jurisdiction there. And on top of that, there's general jurisdiction over the person for even things that sometimes he didn't even do there, right? So that's basically the reason why we were very confident that there's jurisdiction in New Jersey for this case. And to answer the question, the second part, Namka said venue. Venue was proper in the county of Essex because conduct court. It happened within Essex County, in which Bebia na nifi there was no dispute about that, and there has never been any dispute about that. In fact, through the whole litigation, none of that became an issue. And that's how we decided, say, okay, hono na Casey. Well, not no clear one say obviously these days you've seen how a lot of channels have been proliferating their data targeting the Ghanaian and African diaspora in America. Now New Jersey hono so no pa no young Crawford yenuanom ewo ho pa to say it is, I believe, say it's a playground. It is one of the playgrounds for the politics that is played in Ghana. Whether those people who are there have the ability to vote and now say even contribute financially to political parties. Some people may not be aware, but a lot of the remittances that are going home, I believe, go towards politics. If you have a strong base, now politics Ghana. It is not that can be a very solid base for raising money. And
what can I say?
There's an audience there. There's an audience that he sought to address. Even Becca say be I'm funny just but funny the same way in Columbus. Say I can say I have a base in Ohio.
The understanding therefore is that men some Mufi say go anas hufino or kama Ghana phobia or minimum nas not
yes, because even some of the videos grand or share Asiana comments people actually identify themselves with Facebook say Medin the Asimesi na me New Jersey na me answer na me ba na minim menene ko school na say say minue binim no. I'm very shocked in someone Mati would some they are there, they were there in terms of the comments, and it's not like it's an isolation. I compare somewhere there, you compare baby say when assembly bed, and I say when I be doing community near the assembly about how there be. Now the truth, no sooner say, being like I said, I have a lot of faith in the Ghanaian system. Say Ghana is a very young country, and Ghana has intelligent people, especially a law no mono. Ghana food giving globally like here. There are several Ghanaians who have distinguished themselves in the law. And I'm never going to give up on the Ghanaian system. I'll say 60 years old. Or try American history. I'm not more than 60 years now. We need to keep on persevering. Any chance, so we need to mentor the young people, help them so that they become people of integrity who are not controlled by their financial circumstances. Hope say if they continue and they sacrifice now, one day, eventually, it will lead to the financial rewards that they want.
My main sign from sa video no also mo share ya mode assembly court no. Who identify say mo share video no Kennedy Japan honorable eka bibi say Anas or a criminal.
Yes.
Anas or a crop for. Anas in so ono no fi say okun Chinese for bi ewo Ghana. Ye Ahmed Swalin so ni wo wu ya be Ghana for bi adi ho ya wo kan ho nsem bebre no. Ana oni Anas ye adwuma no. Ni nche mu no kwa say Anas no ho ebon ni wo no mu kakra. Enti mo kan ni nyina fo a na mo fi say eye nsem a waka ego Anas ho efi. Enti mo de ne call assemdibia ewo New Jersey because then those comments were made.
Yes.
In New Jersey,
yes.
And therefore the court had jurisdiction.
Yes.
To adjudicate the matter.
Yes.
At what point specifically did you guys decide to go to court?
We decided, I believe, like I said, a mature memorandum based on my training. BBC, we break it down on paper, make sure say it's not an answer. So once that determination was made, I'm because you are now a lawyer, he can understand exactly what you are saying. So he quickly called me and said, "Hey, this is interesting. I never even thought about this. Now, Ujipa." So actually, a lot of other lawyers came on board. There was a lot of conferencing. People doubted what I was saying, but I don't take that personal. You're friend of practice of law. So why I just say you should always be open to explore, to listen to other people's take, because sometimes we say a 6, but we say a 9. So what you see, but in talking, you may see say, okay, this is the perspective this person holds. And there were a lot of lawyers that were involved. I could recall say professors practice law, but academics. They also called. We were on several calls, and eventually, will be agreed. Say, the memorandum was very on point. It was time to take action. Now, I'm not a video, and I think say the statute of limitations for defamation or not. We are almost in New Jersey, we're almost getting to the end of the statute of limitations.
What do you mean, statute of limitation? Okay. To the common person, the ordinary person, Obi Awoti because the statute of limitation was almost catching up with you guys relative to going to court.
Yes.
What do you mean?
Okay. Say Obi be now person no court no your time within which I will say would pursue to one in terms of filing a court case against nipa na say say mrana pa ho say mrana pa ho na emra bi amakwan say ye reverse ya na I say ye stop no baby ma time no stop no say mrana pa ho asa untimi mfa court.
So this case was on the nick of time?
Yes, we were, I think, 5 or 6 months away from the expiration of the statute of limitations. And as I said, I had decided say me call Ghana and I remember back to the US until my roots are firmly planted, because, like I said, me had me into me fear and I only say when you are pursuing something like that, like what I have, the path that I've been on, just to build a solid foundation in Ghana where I can really make an impact now, it comes with a lot of challenges. Into me imagine say me in free Ghana until say me comfortable to the point say me free Ghana, I'll come back. There was a suggestion say me membra US na membra me ye at that time na my license Georgia. But because I am an experienced lawyer, I'm Ramakwan say and come to me koje license New Jersey EDD assembly. But I decided to say no. At that time I had some other people that I was fighting for in Ghana. I been cry still I course nyadia me to me ISA like I said me to me sa every Madam Fubi lawyer New Jersey hona no so African ni won krum ha but ono ya Latini Nigerian to be friend, but promising me say okay, we are Jumano, you can do the work, and then or your government or a private lawyer, but or representing government units, or a very busy person. But he saw the novelty in what I was saying, and he found it very interesting, being also the political angle, because at that time we were exploring suing other people, including maybe I'm not a buying because of some of the things that were said previously, the reason why this was being done. Because Ghana, no, it's a winner take all state. Party back when it's almost like party, BBC. I look like I are buying, but a party in a. But we need to depart from that, because I think it drains the natural resource endowments. Obi ni madibi na only party bumwa, because abayin bi aba no sa nipa no skill set na say we are seeing now no the best person krana for 4 and I say 8 years now na abayin ni power no won't be fam wow man no, you understand. Mini no catch him say and twice so na ye ready ya. So I told son say you now, so no more a lawyer. I'm catching say okay, this is what we are going to do. Yeah, me because at that time he was also preoccupied with some things, including the case in Ghana, preparing. I think you guys at that point they were in the middle of that trial, and I did the work. I remember saying my office cry for about 3 months working on this until it was a perfect document. I the Kofali on New Jersey. Me bought me lawyer Odey Crow Esquire. Na me bona baso, because he served basically as my editor. Me jumana na oboame ohun bibi kura na man kan yi na he corrects it, and so we did that over months, and then when the document was almost ready, he has always been involved, but he finally took it on for a few days very seriously. I remember these were very hectic times. We were on the phone back and forth, late into the night, sometimes even up to 3 a.m. researching every single paragraph. What has now become known as the complaint. He finally, like I said, also a very CEOs of companies, managing directors. But this was a learning experience for me, because his work ethic is very high, and his quest for perfection and being factual with Niamano, and yet because he can't afford to say can be beer and yet no. That's why it took us a lot of time. I'll tell you, even being an experienced lawyer, that was actually one of the toughest things that I have done in terms of paying attention to detail and back and forth and staying open to other people's views. So unfortunately now lawyer ni alatini Nigeria ni now New Jersey he became unavailable for personal reasons, and we had to decide how do we quickly make sure statutes of limitations nanching. So so one for New Jersey I been cry friend on this issue when it was going when in the middle of us working on it, been cry friend and say, hey, I think Ofro be a while ago during that time, and Nipa was sort of reluctant cry say over because of and someone I guess was circulating. We actually had to now instead say ABNA, because no visa to me to coin anytime. And can now I just on one more New Jersey what is known as a pro se complaint. But we needed, based on our research now, if someone court or inquire about what we needed to do to file the case, just say we needed an address, because court, at that time they were in a transition from normal paper filing to electronic system, where they weren't really doing paper filings anymore. So file will be say what be Jan ho, it will take a few days. They will scan it for you for a fee, I believe, if I can recall correctly. And send a mail file document to your address. It's not your address, but now people who know they were reluctant to provide the address for that purpose, just to receive mail. To share complaints now, we used a PO box. Your small b minimum say on could be on tries will be a PO box. So that his address will not. I think I don't know, say security reason. I don't just people, and I think say mostly and someone I wanted to know, because the reason why defamation is very devastating. And say obi ben okra na wate nsem bia obet either say obetwe no ho and I say onu deli kra na is an adwin
en tanta kakra
That's very important later on because Bimbeka say a damage ben now also fire, but Emra recognizes say that's a very very serious damage, a friend reputational harm that is compensable. Just say a baboka say nipano etumi prove say
Ebeba and also
yes.
But lawyer, my main way FM say but even before that, my main sign introduce you people who just joined us would appreciate who we are dealing with.
Okay.
So we are talking to lawyer Selasi Adika Esquire.
Oh, a abbreviation I say engineer ENGR. a lawyer for Eddie no ESQ.
Okay, so lawyer Anas Aremeyaw Anas lawyers are omo eba America ha ebe gina court ene owura Kennedy Japan ekotwe ye kan say ekotwe manso efa Anas nti ase mu say ensem bia owura Kennedy Japan ekan woni fie ewo New Jersey here in the United States sansemo a okan wo obi TV and radio platforms, you know. Anas lawyers are lawyer Selasi Adika Edinwa Koteno say omo share sa video no omo identify Anas omo hu enoma bia na egu Anas hu fia na ye nyina so ema omo timide call court enoma omo hu ye e wo sa video no ekoma owura Kennedy Japan ene sa media platform ni di ye no na ochiremu a lawyer Selasi Adika chiremu a owura Kennedy Japan e kan say Anas eye criminal eye ba kon le toso mienu o say oye cromfo he's a thief le toso miensa no omuhu say sa nkomodie no emu no owura Kennedy Japan e kan say Anas eye abrante a obo a ya Anas wo kun Chinese fobi a na omo ye adwuma e wo Ghana na le toso biom no ewo enkoma owura Kennedy Japan ene sa media platform ni di ye ewo ni fie ewo New Jersey no chese eye owura Ahmed Swali ano ne Anas eye adwuma no ni wu a wu ye se mo be kaya nipa bonfo bi kobo ni tuo no owura Kennedy Japan kire mu a ono ne nti ase ne nim de ne ni owo ne ni onim no kowie se owura Anas Aremeyaw Anas ne ho bon sa owu a ye Ahmed Swali ewu ye no nti sansemu nyina ne kafo aye na Anas lawyers a lawyer Selasi edimu akotene hu say ye nsemu a ye de ko asemdibia ewo New Jersey no a bia na omo kote Anas din ho bia na omo kobo owura Kennedy Japan ka ba ne nkro ne ba ne nyina ne say na omo pese asemdibia no ekirem ma owura Kennedy Japan ebe kirem ko wie sampani ampa ne nsemu a wo ka ye nsemu a mekokire nyina no ko wie say Anas sebi oyenipa bonfo enti yade eno abesia na no na me busa say enti no say no asem no a yemfa ne say dia bedri mo court me pesa me ma womre na broni beka say paint for me, for our viewers, for our listeners, a vivid chronological picture of what you can as far as possible remember that transpired in the court. My mouth summary, because I need that appreciation, I need that comprehension, I need that explanation, not for me alone, but for the many who are saddled with diverse interpretations and all of that, so we can set the record straight.
Okay. And I think to make sense, to give a full picture, I will go a few steps back.
Very well.
From a Yafale case, Yafale case, Mrama Kwan say we have to observe Nipano. You try say na it didn't seem to be America sometime he came back and forth, but that time we hadn't say court no more change your system too far there. This is Emilia Brown and Sana or what could and Sana wako pay private and answer we use private process server. I can Kuruma Ghana almost friend belief we either so we use private process server. Our companies be home yes Jumana and answer we use sheriff. In some documents na papa ba Kuruma no so a coy no the next thing say by what other way I be to myself no. I say any fear no. Mama Kwan says away if you fear when you be of a certain age and you can prove saying the person or a sound mind now, you can serve the person. You know, if I believe say sheriff no, it is sheriff office, Essex County Sheriff.
You can't sheriff then.
Say omoye abang I say one of the units of the government exercise of government police powers in Canada. Okay. And you know, sheriff no is by county. You know, Columbus had I hired in county kura.
I have a BIT.
Meaning say okay, Akron, Ohio, no, Summit County. It's the Summit County Sheriff. Cleveland, no, you Cuyahoga County Sheriff. Into New Jersey, also, no, you Essex County Sheriff. You know, we contacted the Essex County Sheriff. Now, America, no, you private people almost several court people, and you war buying sheriff's department or county sheriffs, no more to be almost several court people. You know, to answer a contact the Essex County Sheriff for now, almost several people no war. I believe that sheriff no crana. They couldn't serve for a few days, so I think we went with a private company who were more, you know, they are more tactical, strategic, to several court people now. And which you know, Emrama Kwan said within a period of time now, we say Nipani several or answer complaints no. America no Ghana cannot rate. Na higher complaints, it complaints no. Yes, several or say within a certain period of time we'll file a response. Just say okay, say asem no e no kre, and I say u deny, and I say u njina so bi nti a wo kan ya ni makwan say court find you liable. You know, unfortunately in this case no within time no pa ho yante ya papa nenka for one reason or another, but in him pass say o monsakai. It's you know, after that period, no, asem no say nipana ambe defending no why court into what is called default.
One fa anu year ma.
A coin.
So anu year no betimi aba say ebia ne moka no enya no
prayer one kasa
and am kind no munchemuni and all of that.
Yes. Nti yan san kan bibia sa. Yeah, check court system so now there was nothing that was filed. It's you know the next step they say he be moving for judgment. Sorry, he be moving for so he was in default. So once the default, you know, who in default and there's a period of time after say nipa na mba am say oh a mistake na me and ask me who and say ni say no be prove to court say oh defense mo koje oh kwan say the amount and answer damages and answer relief now who ask for who busa in complaints no the mama you know yeah baby two one mo no na a papa lawyer and they now at that point you know so they decided to say okay it's time say be pay lawyer I will know what full time one say cut to and say your friend na maybe by that time no I'm still my imagine say member crew mo juma and I say you new before fra obetumi ejini mo man ya see a pe obi a obetumi ejini mo man you know yeah, within the network of Nkrofo you will look for people and union and also the Nkrofo power US ha. You know, he got in contact with a few lawyers more a team no just say they agreed to come on board. You know, once they came on board now I think say omo ba on board no we're now getting ready to go and take judgment. And you know a honor your papa I think say at that point you know so he had become aware and also be only memra so no ejuma parliament but he is not a stranger to these things and you know on our bobra and you know bobra dia court case I'm sure say a month issue and I say you have had to sue people you know so he the lawyer ebamu ema you say onu jinemu ma no na there's a process known as reopening default. You know, the right, filing all the right paperwork. Court G2 must say okay, asem no, and also court judgment because your papa say or I say mika if asem na ye can. The court ni be asem so na your papa file or no any response. Now after that, you know the process. Let's say be near friend discovery. In America, no, New Jersey, no, Americano, say cases ne or different tracks depending on the type of case. No, any discovery period, no. So in this case, no, it was I think say 100 and I mean Kaiba it was something between 120 to 180 day discovery period, which means that's several months, right? Almost half a year. You know, during that period, you try to see a deposition, and the reason I try to see a deposition sometimes
discovery deposition
okay. You know, say what they are some case na civil court yeah, Mrama Kwan say you find out after nipa no abe answer so wakasi nipa na is na nipa no so the response aba. Depending on ni obi aka no Mrama Kwan says documents bi wo hɔ a go to prove in some bia either nipa na or there some na court na kan na say nipa na ono ba be respond no keka won answer ni mu no. Mrama Kwan say there are several tools but create friend interrogatories I just say in some way better busa say na church mu so any na Mrama ho I chere and some betuma kan ne untimi kan how long intino how many questions crowd with me the other one so notice to produce to me busa so on documents now support to no can on famra and I say request to admit no say since no in the can is not far from the same now we can use that to sort of pale down the issues for trial. And you know that is the reason why our case no train because we have to wait for that period to pass. So I know be saying you know saying a betray mo no they filed a motion for summary judgment. They just say feel say in the interim no discovery period no and I think say Ghana case no I think say decision na buy nti buy no mo omode ye engineer so I believe somebody be asem no so say more defense na asem bi about Ghana similar to nti no no echire no omo esan so be file what is known as motion for summary judgment I just say purchase ni e ka no say you need evidence I was say call trial na yes we file a cross motion for summary judgment. Now, 100% for pay very close attention to them canon because later on it's going to come into play. I think Sebino Tiasia contribute to some of this back and forth that's going on in the media currently after I guess the court the jury came back a few days ago. No, and file motion for summary judgment. Pache yembo assembly nengu.
It's an ceremony in so.
Yes. Now yes, you file cross motion. Say.
Na omsemuni enunti yem montungu no na ekowie Ghana case ne decision ana
partly say defamation no the defense ne say truth na say justification say oh you know so the can asema o kan.
But how does that be busakeke how does that make sense to the commoner?
Okay
yedi asem o Ghana o se Ghana asem no o de babe ye defense ewo asama ukodino does it work like that?
Okay no criminal say usually no it doesn't but it can be the basis for facts and someone there's no doubt about so what I say so to not be say all these judgments na be prove asem ewo a different court but in some what's our judgment no with me gina bi so. But the problem they say defamation no it is looked at whether I say any o kana no kura na say no enye no kura no ye hwe no from the time I woka asem no emra woka ne woka no that's where the line is drawn and yet in some way see after so what I say so me say we kron for na unwi ade da na say ye convict say we wi ade na each day okuwi ade na ye chiwa that doesn't make what you said at the time true. So what here? Because like I said, no, the line is drawn when the line of inquiry is drawn when the statement was made. And you know, take the position said no ne emranfo be New Jersey I just say every single act of defamation is separately actionable. The inquiry is separate, you know. We are very confident we will scale that hurdle. And we scale that hurdle successfully. Or more judge no deny a motion for summary judgment, you know. Now yes we file a cross motion for summary judgment. Nature say omo file no emremu no se obi file na opese osu obibi along those lines you have to do that. Nti no yes we file a cross motion say ye yasem no yasem ye to the point say hu hia kra akosi e beko trial. Te say court ni ndi asem ni na man wo na defamation no emremu no obibi e friend nya defamation nko any civil case no e obibi e friend elements a che say wo de asem kokota onu akọ no odo asem na ba na emra che so no no so prove say case no na asem ye de no also satisfy elements no. In this case, we have several elements that was satisfy. Essence here, some no court no. A file motion for summary judgment. Now, by the standard of a review, now we grant say my summary judgment. No, we needed to establish all the elements, to basically to win the case there. When you say court, not judge the rule of mind say.
Which stage is this one?
Summary judgment.
Okay.
And yes, we have filed cross motion for summary judgment based on the fact say and some more kind of correct. And you call na a court in any court no a rule for yen on I believe 2 of the 3 elements are a car. The only element a car and say whether in some more kind or can seminal with reckless disregard for the truth. And I say knowing full or say no can no kre no kind. Into court ever be court a acquired trial and he said that was the only issue I just say we are going on trial for, because we had prevailed on those 2 elements already in summary judgment. And no na as I say we need the motion for yes your cross motion for summary judgment no, the matter will now be set for trial. I just say back court am idi asem no no na dey ba New Jersey maybe the Kamba Kruma ebe 2 and I'm be 1-2 be and sana the rest of the team ebe share and more lawyers no more than no more asem no be share. But we have always been meeting on this case over the years. I prepare kopem say you cry about Kruma several times ebe DHD and na me cry more between New York and Atlanta for the last 3 months and sana ebe court no. The case was set for trial in March. A few days before, the whole team moved camp to New Jersey. Court started trial. I think the week of the 13th, and
how many days did it take in all?
Trial. No?
Yeah.
You started Monday and apa. But you court Monday and apa. But you started case na kasa evidence thing Tuesday and apa. Because Monday and apa no na it was mandatory settlement conference actually for the first time the 2 parties will meet.
That was on Monday.
Monday and apa. But the 2 parties will meet to see say if the matter can be resolved. Say nti ye court ye open court omo frɛ asɛm no lawyers ni na gina omo na so announce say omo ready say be di asɛm no no nche enu echire procedurally no steps na sana obodru courtroom be start di asɛm no e ka sɛ monko hia obi ono ye arbitrator obehwɛ sɛ asɛm no sɛ nya asɛm bi woni sɛ ye bɛkɔ akodi homanso ye kɔtwe homanso dia na yakan ho. But unfortunately into me and coming to an agreement say I bet you say it will be both parties will make them
and see what etie for tibia
medical
because can papa mu dia come so twe dia say especially so when any criminal case na mo ho akwanya say at the mandatory settlement conference no mutimi din komo say enuanom na say efie for na mo wi asem ni frequent na enko wie court na mo nkotwe ho manso e dia na si wo ho a ofi say yetibia na yehu bia ensei.
Okay, medical can want someone ya papa no mo lawyer for bi o mo kan ho
ya na person Yesu honorable Kennedy Japan no mo
o say
me person Yesu honorable Kennedy Japan.
Oh, there be enye honorable asem na make
na ya papa no ye hwan in this case
lawyer for bi a say your lawyers ni bi o team no mo o mo si me pani nti no
okay nti lawyers no mo bi no kire say
me ko use asem we no ka chem say enye careful about putting that in the public space.
Okay, that's fine, I can understand. Nti na me can say dia na yetia anyhow
and the long and short
you don't have to talk about it, that's fine.
Oh, no problem. And long and short say we couldn't come to an agreement.
Okay, that's fine.
As both parties not able to make them happy.
Okay.
Now the other thing I would like to underscore is say Anas the whole time he has been adamant say or per se court a decided case because he would like to be vindicated in terms of some because or no because agreement be na actually now because some of these agreements can be confidential. Like I say, okay, yeah, agreement about it. We ain't been say na in some seminar kwatted that na koka the media space. And I say I can't go for 3 more. No, so no, we try and Juma or no, on penny big companies in an Juma, can you know, BBC, Al Jazeera, Voice of Africa, you know, I mean, so many places, you know, these things, so no, like I said, no, people underestimate how far defamation can travel. But like I said, no, you no more BBC, you no more Ghana for, you no more CNN, and will be more Ghana for, and you know, you shouldn't think say and do it. Ghana for
and beyond the settlement conference, no, now or some court, and all started. How did it start?
And to your court,
the court structure, the court system, and how things play out in the court, and then sync that, you know, with this particular case.
Okay. And you know, American court system, no, the way it works to it's a man of trial now. Most places is the same, like I was describing, no. Go through the whole initial discovery, back and forth from the motion practice to whether a motion to dismiss and as a motion for summary judgment. Say, Nina, I'm end the case now. Case will know we move into trial calendar. You know, trial calendar, no, a court Monday, depending on the announcement, a lawyer, maybe and a lawyer, and if he say it has not been done, I am one case until your time. Say, on you're ready. So we'll find share the next trial calendar. But this time, everybody was ready. You know, like I said, no, before we drew courtroom, now could do judge nobody assembly anymore. Judge no be supervise jury na the assembly. Mandatory self settlement conference. Now, Kohonamun to me and make an agreement. The court will now assign you to your court, the judge who preside over the trial. You know, before this, judge and as a courtroom, you be the assembly. You know, a free settlement conference na you call court assigning courtroom I be the assembly, and also a court no one system and when you be any mobile honorable side in yes we found out a court you know they assigned us to a courtroom and I call courtroom no by the time we drew on that it was almost lunch hour.
From the settlement conference, man to Mohuaseno, and I'm call court straight.
Yes.
Same day.
And I'm back to courtroom. It be the assembly, no judge, no alcohol.
And to call courtroom one, and he starts him with the assembly.
And your call no, now I think tonight it's almost lunch break now because your court starting 9. Between cases be between your train, am I afraid case no, I'm lawyers now announced so me ready for trial, nay. And keka hono besenko settlement conference na I do about 11:30 anapa. You know, finally yenya courtroom no yakoi na judge no eti lawyer for ni mienu for the first time your side no emiti on side no honorable honorable for the first time Kenya Japan first time I hu no and I think so also for the first time I'll be anas in person I just say like physically say nipa na or say anaso ni nipa way of jina hui. You know near because some preliminary things cause so as I say you know share a disguise no usually or share the channel. That issue came up the courts you know decided I will not even want to go into that because I think that's not too important. Right. You know and which in a court chair and say okay enko lunch na game plan for the trial in near Kwaba. As I said, both sides agree. Say this case will be decided by a jury. No, the jury nature say, America no Ghana system no criminal cases typically now the jury system, but America no both the criminal and civil no the juries participate. Just say your two and suffrage or more mudin or voter register so they will automatically be over a certain age. Our county now assembly na say surrounding areas basically in the same county. No, the funny say constitutional guarantee say you be tried or your case will be heard by a jury of your peers. It's just a neighborhood be out to be sort of people or for you know American that's the way it works until you know they help in governance, they help in it's a civic part of your civic responsibility. You two and suffer krana let an ba wo muna one kohoa ubinyasem. It's no much say for this case no nipa 60 na beba court ho 60 na beba court ho na omabogu your friend emremu your from the veneer VENEER na yede beba dan no yede beba courtroom ho yede ba your process na be go through a yebe vet in so to speak by a friend of Wadia na chese be busa question na Wadia no so ho amra wo separate to kura a lawyer for mu kotra no kusua chese they become experts in it because it is a skill it will really help you in terms of the case because so the case na say na what psychology say na you know who can really understand the complexity of the case. All those factors go into Wadia and it's an essential part of trial. Into a lawyer be on court on yet trial lawyer on TSC or on to me could be assembly effectively. Into no nipa 60 and after lunch you do a back courtroom ho. Na Wadia process no it's a team effort. Into no client no say only according assembly kono. In this case announce no a lawyer. So before this, we prepared all of this. And also, near we'll look out for because the point of what they say, being a fair and impartial and independent jury. Just say, "Yempo bi onimobi, yempo bi onimobi obi anasem or interest for case no mo. Yempo bi on pe ebinu asem, and I say we be on pe Africa for asem, and on pe politicians for asem, and I say on po bi a investigative journalists, and on po bi a criminal, you know." There's I would not like to waste too much time on this, but it's very complex. I just say, Mama Kwan say lawyers, no. In this case, no, the type of case now it was a court, no. It gave every side 5 preemptory challenges. I just say, we don't have to explain yourself. But beyond that, I say, your certain things are about Nipana. It's not a preemptory challenge. It's a matter of constitutional rights. It's Nipana impartial, or the person is biased. Will be near and it will be in a free. You understand? And you know, we went through that process. Now, yeah, I recall say no Nipa ba with preemptory challenges.
Out of the how many?
60. No?
60.
Yeah. Now out of 60, no. Like I said, no, some people you have to pass a preliminary test. I just say if you need any affiliation with the case, and I say only be more important than this case. I a bit distracted. So obviously you cannot focus your time, your attention to listen to what is important to both sides who have something to lose. In this case, no, analysis, reputation, and then Honorable Kennedy Japan, you know, and also see once that it doesn't go in his favor, it's a dent on his image. Not to speak of the financial implications of some of the reliefs that Ibusa or complaints. It's a very serious constitutional process. You know, no, we felt like somewhere at the buyer, no, it's not complex because it kind of summary judgment. To the questions for the jury, no, now we are comfortable with as long as we be any bias there, we're not too concerned. So that was what we were looking out for. You know, like I said, it's a team effort. You know, usually in lawyers, you know, you have other people, and that's where I played a lot of I played a role. To say, ukura notepad or for reaction, be a lawyer, the lead lawyer, and also be on be now, you know, you draw his attention to it. So, went through the process, and it took a long time. It took a long time. I remember, I said, juror number 8, you know, the 8th one. It took a long time to find the 8th person. And I
find the 8th person out of the 60.
No, say this case, you know, 8 jurors in TSM out into a pick. So 8 out of
7,
60.
You had picked 7.
Yes.
And it was a difficulty picking the 8th person.
Yes. Because I'll tell you, the Honorable Kennedy, Japan lawyer, or Yadi, especially with that, you see that he's very experienced. You know, he did it based on the type of case. You know, he did a great job. I just say, we come. Kopim said the last person was picked. Now at that time it was about 4:30. Now America no say government workers 4:30 you know. The business of the day closed on day 1 at that time.
Which was Monday of last week.
Yes. Which will be Friday until last Monday the 9th, right? Yeah. Okay. So, you know, the courts basically closed for the day and gave instructions, said the next day, Tuesday, no. Best start with opening statements. Just opening statement and say CC jury no bound better box.
Now what?
Now opening statements so another skill is required for that. You are basically going to promise the jury say what's na we now the bachelor more say one what's de now almost one comedy. I think at that point I became sort of a technical assistant to a lawyer no D anymore or D assembly. So I think I had gone out to go and get some HDMI cord a presentation I actually missed opening statements even though I kind of knew what was going to be said. And me back now me back to courtroom na just say you do baby and as your friend as the first witness for the plaintiff. Adaka no jury no ewo ho dance here.
So at that point na Anas was in the you kind of a box and
witness box, witness stand or box. Ghana kind of box, but witness stand.
Ojanina so all kind of
yes. Lawyer, lawyer no lead lawyer na ebusa nsem. Yes.
Okay, so more lawyer now or dim when kind no. Ena ono no client here Anas no. Ono no ebusa Anas na sem say asema ye de buy no bo nkuo e wo bedwam.
Yes.
E wo court ha. Na jury na eti ho nipa enwotwe no omuntie asem wa woka.
Yes.
Na omutie wi a na de biom.
Eno no ye ntino say wa wo lawyer ebusa questions for witness stand do my friend a direct examination. Ntino no say parameters also question with me busa and a question to me busa. Of course, the opposing lawyer no wa no busa semi officer and one side and also one can your be objective.
Oh, me busa me client asem no. Na opposing lawyer net
so
some me busa me client ofi say emremu no entwa yi a obetimi atiem
original na so adro judge na attention na judge na make ruling say to aso and as one can you sign.
Okay, me patch to asma
that was what was happening and Anas was the first witness our side no ria na the defendant lawyer which is your papa honorable Kennedy in Japan and the lawyer no ebe confront witness no. This is an adverse witness. Obviously no can no ono omunjintum but na so more problems with no can no try some fifi more a probe then na no number of funny for cross examination and also as a skill as unimu ya obi fi say we busa question but umbusa question the cardinal rule they say you don't cross examine a witness without having the answer already. That's what sometimes discovery is for, to get documents, to earlier testimonial, a drew one out between their confront to Nipano. That's what cross examination is. There was some sort of rumor around the courthouse at that point, I think say na ye kra na ye pese ye frɛ your papa honorable Kennedy Japan as witness, but for lawyer no, once again the lawyer no, a brilliant lawyer. He did a really good job within a court where you learn a lot from both sides. The lawyering.
So if I understand, I'm just looking at you because I'm appreciating the narrative and kind of enjoying every bit of the journey. But just so we are sure we are on track. Anas agent Naswa Walkasa.
Yes.
More lawyers no, mo lead lawyer no, and a ebusa no asem in semna year no court home. Into ye san semna no nyina no, and the opposing friend is saying
papa honorable Kennedy Japan lawyer no esubebusa and nsem.
Assign subebusa Anas no mu nsem.
Yes.
Okay, and what's the purpose? Because then
and only a cross examination say emremu no obi ka asem fa ho a you have the opportunity, you actually have your right to confront the witness. And only the whole essence of obi beko court say asem a ka no obi nya chance a confront to either wa the asem na kono na o witness na say obi e wo ho obi dia dance ama. Okay,
so and what and I'm flipper kwan no.
And which no your friend case in chief. Wow, there are some no way of presentation. Say nipa ba ko na obefre, nipa miensa na obefre, nipa you understand. So obefre expert kura na ho na obefre. Now, excuse me. Na case as I say defamation based on audiovisual evidence no. Na so lawyer bi kura ho no mfa oma Anas and testify because here because some of you can fa no ho tape so. into no, but we felt for other reasons say important say you get to understand, because there are some elements on one bit to me I ain't caught to as someone some can call so video no so no, but it goes to other elements I was say yeah satisfied no here say obi dia dance here into no anything I believe say he was put on the stand with the dance here.
Okay, on no way and what happened?
On no way, and at that point, we decided say we don't need any more witnesses because you have some audio visual recording I transcribe. Say na kasa no ya English bro for ni twi mexi. And as I say amu di asem no on betumi di asem no fairly no omo nka ekrum kasa no. Emra requires to say before you can use that no. All the video no kwa ba untumi ebe just say what transcribe through a mremu no more processor bibisa no ya transcribe nipa na obe transcribe kran obe or you will be a certified no say what the kasa ni mi no omiti some test bi court crage atum say or you be a obitumi and obitumi translate it honestly and accurately na no eche no so no we take it off say no ye no oditro mu a ho asotwe ti no sa transcript no and then the evidence I so till audio visual recording na course no na so, but a kind of evidence the back court pan there and only transcript of video no. Okay, into no you rely on Anas testimony ni transcript of and someone papa honorable Kennedy Japan a kind no. You know at that point no na you close to your case in chief. You know the next thing they say they could have honorable Kennedy Japan and the lawyers they could have decided they don't have to answer anything, and I said they will answer. Now at the end of I guess a honor you call lunch break near back no. Na honorable Kennedy Japan take his stand no I think say Ninuya our lawyer Rafi Japan yes Ninuya lawyer Rafi Japan obia organa
on one the case Ghana case
yes Oba's witness ebedi dance first until omo lawyer no ebusabusa nsem
that time na Kennedy honorable Kennedy Japan no we
no court say the be by court every day. You know Raf testify we no na omo frɛ yeso yebusa na asem yeso your lawyer no lead lawyer no enya chance say obebusa na some about no obeka or stand so we na osi fom na ye papa honorable Kennedy Japan so ba ebedi adanse obewura box no or testify, and I think say he testified late into the afternoon. This will be on day number 2. So he testified late into the afternoon and court so I think say the you know only cross examination of Anas the first day until it spilled into the next day. To make your preparation by kama cross exam so I think they finished with him around like 10 more and so now almost start here almost testimony presenting the side of the case because Rafa Japan Esquire ebedi dance here you know papa honorable Kennedy Japan esoba ebedi dance here and it spilled over into the next day, which is Wednesday you know Wednesday I think say we continued with cross examination ebusabusa and some about kan the transcript to so ebusa and some no be kan in the presence of the jury you know and which they know and I think say almost one more rest one case rest one case na akoka say aka either say at this point motions be wo or be feel say at this point abia won't prove case na embo asem ngu na say any other issues now lawyer like I said lawyer a very good lawyer and and also make motions be judge na didn't side with him because our argument judge if you say no it was more in line with Emra na I think some motion class say asem improve asem into mbongu na judge deny motion Ghana kind of application because motion it's like suggests a paper filing, but which now now per se we make a motion you can do that, which is Ghana friend application a pa hono hono na afi no akoka say asem no sisia no ebeko jury no ho. I believe say that's
me pacho sa enami no Monday Tuesday ni nyina no na jury
Monday Tuesday Wednesday na mo born to our common seminar. You said all this before the jury? Yes.
On all 3 days?
Yes.
Okay. But before you go to the response or during the decision, just paint a brief picture of how, the demeanor of both Anas and Honorable Kennedy Japan. I'm saying this because, let's see from your narrative, having witnessed the process, how they both looked and how they reacted, and, all of that.
Anas, I know Anas very well, and he's always the same person. We have a lot to learn from him, even from the way his demeanor, the way he looks at things. He always has sort of a futuristic outlook to Nyama. He's more mature. Like I said, I've grown a lot just by associating with him. I can tell you that. And he always maintained his calm. I believe so. Understand Krano. He testified, say, Honorable Kennedy Japan na papa.
Oh, he said that.
Yes. He said so. He has nothing against him. Nothing personal.
He was not bitter.
No.
Not confrontational.
No.
Not taken aback. Was not surprised.
No. So sounds a Muslim. He doesn't even venture into certain. He said understand openly. I think said there's going to be transcripts. The courtroom is recorded. Court and Castle video. All of this is there. Yeah, he said understand. Say Ubuomano. He sees him as a father figure in both culturally in terms of culture and saying so many. He still has that respect for him. And also as a political figure in a papa because he's high up on the political in the Ghanaian political space. And you can't deny that. And, that acknowledgement was made. Understand. And I papa so he's a very humble man, contrary to what maybe some people may paint or some of the stuff that's going on. There were points where he actually even opened the door for us all to walk out of the courtroom. And, there was no confrontation of that sort. And we have always taken the position that we just think say he takes his reputation very seriously because, like I said, he has been working undercover. Which will be he's headed to a sort of international recognition in the end. I just say, this is the time to make good money to feed his family. And his reputation is very important because say either so no voluntarily decides say onion or baby man I say he's been forced to do so by circumstances such as this now. I don't think
so. They did not go to the court to, as it were, fight after all.
It's a civil court. It's a civil court. And part of my team for Ghana for like me for instance, I had never met Ralph Japan, even though he's very vocal. I've seen him in the media, I've seen him in a court in Ghana. But this was my opportunity. He even overheard said me boni din say na branch anymore here. And which later led to a formal introduction at lunch break. It's just law, and those who understand this understand say Nyantokwa is law. It's nothing personal. In the end, yes, people might feel, he did something a bit macho, and I say you can feel some type of way, but we've said say, and that's why it's a profession that we are in. Professional, you remove your emotions from it.
Okay, so Mensan Kamubium say yani lawyer Selasi Adika, and Edwin Komoy oye Anas Aremeyaw Anas. The legal team America omone Kennedy Japan somewhere ekowie New Jersey ayate ho nsembebre kwa manfo ka ho nsembebre kwa we are happy to say that we have this exclusive interview with him, which is why we are spending so much time to be able to take the detailed information as much as we possibly can to be able to sanitize the system, which for me seemed to be diluted and or polluted because then almost stand almost to say the other side also so as you say. So we just want to bring clarity, to the issues. Now, after say now the response of the jury to their presentations.
Oh, in terms of the response, in terms of seminal echo.
Omokasari, and what happened next?
Okay, the both sides we are the presentation of evidence. Now, the next step is closing arguments. Now, closing arguments, like I said, the opening statement now is sort of a promise of what you are going to deliver with evidence. Now, closing argument is basically a summation, a summary of what has happened. So, to be effective at trial, you have to tie in what you said in the beginning with what you are saying now, using the evidence that you have put on during your presentation. That's basically the goal, and you want to do that in an effective way. Those of us who do this routinely, and there are psychological factors that go back to why you picked the type of jury you picked, the language that you're going to use to address them. Because honestly, you can win or lose a case in closing statements. Now, a very technical area, so we are certain mistakes now. It may might bought the whole trial ago. That went on. They went first, and their lawyer did a great job under the circumstances of the facts that were put before the jury. He did a great job. To the point, I spent most of my time assisting in terms of paying attention to the jury. Giving feedback to the person speaking to them, so that our presentation is well received. And there was a point where I move from quote unquote the inside of the courtroom, a call almost side of the courtroom, because that's where the jury was. To me, good angle. I can tell the effectiveness of what's going on. And which they confess, and like I said, lawyer did a great job. My prediction on where the jury was sort of changed then. I don't say Binomo was beginning to get swayed by what he said. Yes, we have call next. Yes, we have call, lead representative, so a man presentation. I was very confident. We are tied in everything solidly. I didn't have a doubt. The jury was going to come back in our favor. Even though it's an estimate, and in a sense, only a foolish lawyer would think he knows what the jury is going to do. I say that just to say I thought based on what I saw, I could predict, but that's neither here or not, neither here or there. We still had to wait for the jury to come back. But I always felt the jury was not going to take too long, because this is not a complex issue. I said we had already established certain things in summary judgment, so it was just a matter of weeding through it. Now, it is important to note that at some point I found out one of the counts, there was a ruling on it by the judge. It's free. One of the counts there, I believe the count related to Ahmed Swale, the direct count that involved the murder of Ahmed Swale. I think the judge made a ruling based on an application made by Honorable Kennedy Japan lawyer. The remaining counts, and per my understanding, was what was going to go to the jury. At 4:30, about 4:30, and the jury left the courtroom with. So after closing statement, the next phase step and said, judge, he is there as papa court. To be you draw his attention. Over fellows name at church almost said many say and I said all kind of sign. So that was a function of the judge. Now after all the presentations and closing arguments, one of the judge the Juma power then say no cramrano and Crawford now jurors they have taken an oath say they can, and they would keep an open mind to hear the evidence and the testimony, and now keep an open mind on Emrana Ebechiro. Now, Emrana Ebechiro, my friend, jury instructions. Emra, purely Emra. Now, it is supposed to be done, written in a way, say the ordinary person on the streets who can read and write and comprehend, will be able to understand. It's supposed to be very simple to be understood. Now, the practice, they say generally they were model jury instructions. Over time, quarter year for years. Cases, this is nothing new. New Jersey, the defamation case, this is not the first time. There's court, almost every court, no more model jury instructions.
Okay.
That are tailored to fit the circumstances of each individual case. In this case, I say that to say, both sides in open court and also in communication with the judge. Both you can't communicate with the judge behind another lawyer's back. So no, if an ex party, the prohibition of ex party communications just say open send the email. The judge this if sending the BBR, or send you have to copy the other lawyer. What you say, so that there's transparency. That's the bulwark of American judicial system's transparency, and I think that's everywhere really. But it's aspirational, and depending on the country or the whatever the jurisdiction is, it might differ a little bit based on what's the people's culture and whatnot. And I say that since both sides participated in crafting the jury instructions. There were times where even in open court they went through it, where in the absence of the jury, right? So once there's an agreement on what the jury instructions are going to be now, the judge will now prepare it into a document, a comprehensive document that will, number one, be read out to the jury in open court in front of everybody and sent out with the jury. I'm going to court the then baby I'm going deliberations, baby I'm recalling someone more evidence. What normally susu emrana say one.
Emrana judge ne ma omo.
Yes, okay, can chiro omo in open court, esan so dem omo in case they need some reference.
Semetiase a near omutie ye ewo court ho ewa bra in this case anas the plaintiff for the nasem buy no ekan ye any ora Kennedy
any transcript
any ora any anas transcript
of video na dey assembly na buy
and ni nyina on his side and any ora Kennedy Japan so ebekan any your
evidence on the buy. In this case he brought Who Watches the Watchman or a boy.
Did you show that in the court?
Portions of it, yes. Portions of it, some of it was read into the transcript and some Simbia, it's complex, but let's just see how they buy. And I think there were some other videos in addition to the testimony.
Let me just understand. Who Watches the Watchman? It became popular in Ghana. How was the reception like to playing the Who Watches the Watchman?
Oh, I'm on Bonnie now, but they played portions of it are relevant to
such as what?
In seminar. I think it was more relevant to say the claim said there was a claim about Anas being a blackmailer and a thief. And I think they sought to demonstrate certain things with that video about uncrophobic cancer. Now, mind you, anytime you have audiovisual evidence, it's subject to challenges. Say authenticity could be at the court,
whether it's doctored or not.
Exactly. And then there are also rules of evidence I play in that, which authenticity is a component of the rules of evidence. I have foundational, so to prove the evidence is what you claim it is and can be relied upon. Now, and outside of that, there are issues of somewhere also audibility, visibility of Nippon Kasa. Video no video ni clear. Nipa ni has not been established like the voice. You have to basically go through all that, and those are all going to be talked about in the jury instruction. The weight, the lack thereof of this and that, and so we won't say if you want the video ni bad lawyer and say we in CNS, and so all those things are looked at when in the evaluation of the video. Now I remember very clearly evidence called out with the jury in this case included a flash drive also. Now the jury is not bound to said courtroom so here into evidence said this is going to be part of the record. Now they can refer back to it, but the DNA in evidence they can't go back and look at it, right? And evidence was labeled for terms of reference later on appeal, and I say and I remember very well they one of evidence called out to the jury a flash drive and some recordings including portions of Who Watches the Watchman, some other video beyond the by also.
Beyond that, jury went call me there in Canada and court to adwene keka ni amwo mi no kan nyina esia no and almost signed by.
Yes.
Between the time they went out and the time they came up to give you the verdict, how long did that take? And what was the verdict like?
I believe it took don't quote me on it specifically, but somewhere between 4-4:15, you know, because court on maybe at on hair and he's still crying. I'm still recovering from my back, you know, a hard bench. You know, what's why I share time part. You're bent for now, you know, everybody's trying to think of, you know, and you know, I know say it was very late in the day after 4. You know, make one imagine say, oh, say we there, it drew on. Sometimes, usually, no, it's not rare for a jury to come back quickly if the case is very simple, and I believe this case was a very straightforward and simple case. In fact, I think the judge passed the comment said this was going to be one of the shorter trials in the whole courthouse, because sometimes the jurors they might not be interested in a certain case. They want to be from one mass. So if you don't get on this jury, you can get in on a jury in another courtroom. So I believe this is not a complex case, and I would see it in someone based on the number of witnesses and evidence. It's about something that was said on video. If it's true, you bring something to prove that it's true. You understand? And you know, I didn't think it was going to take too long to get to the bottom of this and decide who is right and who is wrong.
In all of this, my Babe Busa, your friend is saying during the decision.
So to answer your question, it took about 30 minutes, 25-30 minutes, they came back.
Okay, and they came back to say what?
They came back, and I remember saying, it was not 5 yet, but I know say the cafeteria and the court was closed, and I said by 4:30 no more closing. Yeah, I just say cafeteria no. We all went there, both sides. I mean, like I said, because we you know, lawyers need the other lawyers on the other side that I have heard of that I didn't meet, I met them. There were other guys there who we were fraternization. Even your lawyer no cry, maybe cry. I said only, ura yeah papa can do Japan cry. It's a meeting on much uchian and some. Do like you know ushi obi doing come. Me cry. I said, I'm share Rafa Japan. Formally, I mean in a casa, yeah. Now credit we didn't shake hands. We kind of bump first. Now, Papa Kennedy, now I'm Ralph Buzam. Now, I didn't even. I'm so there will be one organ or only more. I will say, Papa Kennedy, Japan cry, you know. So it was a respectful, cordial encounter, basically to determine who is right and who is wrong.
And the jury came back to say what?
So the jury came back. We were waiting there. I just said, what's now? I'm a number 5. Now I be a couple BBD. With the view say be a catch some more ratchet on a pub, because anytime a jury in the bay ready be a from. So we thought say we were definitely thinking say a bantem, because I can't say that time can coffee. But I see a lawyer no a lead lawyer no or the bag I got 2 the curm and send or bass on in a honey I be about BBD and I but by the time of bar back on back into the building, now say, hey guys, let's go. We are the jury is back. So that's not the first. I have seen criminal cases even decided that quick. It's, you know, we went in the courtroom, of course, not knowing what the decision was going to be. Like I said, it would be very arrogant and foolish to think, say, you know what the jury is going to do. Even though we believed in the strength of our case here at the court, you never know, right? Because it's about credibility of the witness. Sometimes, you know, certain factors that are, you know, borderline. And in this case, it's worthy to note, say, Papa, he maintains no one so still. So it basically will boil down to who is more believable, credibility, right? And of course, whether there's evidence to support what you are saying or not. Your court, and judge, your court, inside first. Will be able to lawyers, both sides, plaintiff and defendant, and sana. Your fret, what is called the bailiff, which is pictures be around the police ni inua before be giant be in a chile ho no a court bailiff no so no na djuma ne say o take off say o mo bian rather na jury na e deliberate no and on prema jury bia nye bibia ni so ye ti no no gina pro nanim bebi o mo no e guard ono no match o mo from courtroom to edan mu and back. Obi ntumi nkɔfa etire nguhu obi anaasɛ obi ntumi nkɔkeka nsɛm kyerɛ obi na jurors no kra ye ni kwan sɛ yɛhwɛ ɔmo anim mpo ne ɔmo yɛ yi yehu ɔmo courthouse na just almost you have to run away from them because you don't want the semblance of anything untoward going on, right? Into jurors no kra, one of the things they tell them early on is say obi enchiawa, don't take it personal. So one who be courtroom hana or representing na so kan one side or the other side huna oyi nani anya so otan wana so onye ni papa ni ana se bibi, you know. So we were there, and the bailiff brought the jury. The jury marched into the jury box where they sit, and the judge. Now, before Ombakono, Emma Bako, you funny Pabako as the 4-person. I don't know the name. So no back kind of decision, but all their decisions are made by taking a vote. Right? And you know, na 4-person, Judge Busan say yes. You say you have a verdict, so let's hear it. Now, verdicts. Let me also point something out. Jury, they go in with what is known as a verdict form. Now, verdict form, both sides, just like the jury instructions, contribute to its crafting and drafting with the judge, and all of this happened partially by email between the legal teams and the judge, right? And in open court, where whatever was sent overnight to the judge, and say, hey, I got this. I will ask you to bring this. I want and I say, we have and then they compare, and so they finally agreed on what the questions that the jury will need to answer to communicate their decision, right? So that's the verdict form, right? So so you have a verdict. 4-person say yes. Now, okay, on the issue of liability, say feel say. Yeah, Papa Honorable Kennedy Japan liable for defaming Anas Aremeyaw Anas. Now Judge Busa almost say what was the vote? And it was 8-0 to say
8-0.
Yes. See, there were follow-up questions. Some of it are leading up to the question of how much damages they awarded. And also I can say 18 million United States dollars. And also almost about 8-0. So for every question that was mutually agreed upon by both sides, now a call into the verdict form, and the jury voted 8-0 on each one of them. Now, jury net bore the damage amount no more awarded, as 18 million. Now. It's also important to know, say, Trano, it was supposed to be different classes, or Ebusa for different classes of relief in terms of damages, right? Ebusa, what is known as presumed damages, actual damages, which are economic loss, and then reputational damage, and it's also Busa for punitive damages. Now, punitive damages, there was an agreement, say, the other lawyer said, say, he made a motion to the court, say, before, ahead of time, say, no, it will be taken after the finding of liability and the award of the other damages. Now, I just outlined, right? And jury, about 18 million. Now, Busan say, okay, so this is your decision. Say yes. The catcher say okay. CC, and that was Thursday. I know there's some misinformation.
And you guys initially were looking for how much?
30 million United States.
So you sued for 30 million.
Yes.
And you remember 18 million.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is the cumulative figure, right? But complaint and the jury is not bound to go by that. Outside of Emrebi White, say you can't exceed a certain amount. The jury can give more than what you're asking for, depending on what they see, right? And so the jury was discharged that day. So Munkufie. Now Mumbra back for the second phase now, punitive damages. But we couldn't actually that day. They are judging per se. Yeah, no, so that same day. That's end of even though the day. But unfortunately, like I told you, yeah, lawyer, no computer and now both sides, the drafting of both the jury verdict form. Basically, the lawyers assist the court. Imagine Nejuma easy. Judge also is very down to earth. On no crown, I say servant. To me, edgy email no say guys, I'll be back. No, Johnny, I call print here, but no, I print it at the bar. No, the amount share mistake na was also aji. Okay, let's fix it now. No more bar. And jury was discharged because, like I said, a lead lawyer the computer could turn a thinking say, we came back without a computer. Even though the judge wanted us to continue that day, we couldn't. So the next thing was now the next availability date will be available. Of course, lawyers are busy people. And their lawyer wanted, we wanted the next day, Friday. Thursday, not during the buy. There's some misinformation said Friday. No, nothing happened. We didn't even go to court on Friday. Let's be factual about some of this stuff. The both sides, the nipa some and we shouldn't take sides to to befuddle the truth. And Friday, their lawyer was not available, but we were available. But on Monday, it was the other way. They were available, but we were not available because a lead lawyer, so I think he has some other legal commitments in some other court somewhere. So the agreement was that Tuesday, no back. Now jury no saba. Now, before I leave Thursday, it's important I point this out. During the buy now, there were a few things that could have been done by the party who doesn't feel happy with the jury's verdict. And in line with that, Papa Honorable Kennedy Japan lawyer Jinan announced when he made an oral motion, say judge issue what is known as remiticha. Now remiticha basically judge or supervisory jurisdiction over
this is when the
Thursday
the Thursday.
Yes, jury na can 18 million we na
okay.
Your mom ko fie no, yes mom ko fie na mom bra no. Pie na the name bi wa obut back in front of the jury. Name bi so excuse me, name bi so want to menka. The jury free courtroom no na lawyer na make the motion say legal terms your friend remiticha. What's it? It's been going around the space now. They didn't in city and I said, judge, in this case, specifically in New Jersey by statute, power. Say jury come make a damages award now. Who feel say the technical word say shocks the conscience now. You can't say judge need to be tested. So the lawyer made that motion, and the judge basically, I would say he didn't say anything. He said what? Right? I remember that very well. And all of this is documented. We knew said that was going to come up. Right? And quickly you call and drew few crown and started legal research. Say what are the grounds for the success of his request for remittiture based on the fact he says it shocks the conscience. So if we did the research, we figured out what the parameters for that test was going to be. So over the weekend, we were ready for that. We were ready to confront that on Tuesday. Now, on Sunday, and we keep track of what's going on. And there have been updates in the court docket. Maybe we can talk about that to bring more clarity to some of the confusion and misinformation and also. And we kept an eye on the court docket from that Thursday now, that Tuesday and Panona. That Monday, which was the 17th, we noticed Papa Honorable Kennedy Japan, the legal team, I file what is essentially a letter brief, what your letter come court, basically canvassing exactly kind of court. I believe in anticipation, said judge will rule on it and I say BB. And Tuesday I buy he brought that up again. Not on the basis he said it shocks the conscience, it's excessive, which is a whole another term of art, which calls for a separate test. There's a test for when damages award shocks the conscience, and a separate test for when it's excessive. But now the judge has the power to, under law, to either apply each one of these tests to reduce the damages award. It's all part of the court supervisory jurisdiction, just like courts and power to rule on motions, interlocutory motions that courts to drain the trial. The judge had those powers. Tuesday, we prepared for to put in evidence, even though I think there was already evidence on record to support punitive damages, but I believe based on the instructions, which I will tell you, I've seen everything, but I'm not privy to the verdict form. Like I know it because we saw it being prepared, but the actual form there, I'm catch us So on Tuesday morning, we are aware of that letter that had been filed. No? We rehashing that position, say enter no for Aremeyaw. So I was not surprised say the court, Honorable Kennedy Japan lawyer, no, they raised that issue, and the court said, I think he said the language the lawyer used was a judge no promise and say he will rule on it, and the judge said I never said that, which means that the judge probably doesn't see any merit to that, right? Until that issue fell to the side. And we went on now to add on to the evidence that I believe was already in the record. Proves this conduct calls for punitive damages. There's a test that, if it's satisfied now. One of them is the person's ability to pay. And I believe, on direct examination, and as testified, your papa maybe say $4 million a peanuts, and that is an element of that if you have an evidence calls for the grant of punitive damages. So I take the position said there was already evidence on the record to support punitive damages in this case, because we go in the first time now upon the court whether the person won or not now or response is who me muska na $4 million is peanuts na there, then it will take a that means there I'll say this, Anas is not interested in this for the money. Money is good, and onya the be but his goal, because there had been overtures to settle this matter even before he drew baby, but he always was taking a position that I oftentimes felt was difficult. He was being difficult, but now me dream why I understand, because Charlie, and for someone to build himself, Anas is not. I say in terms of the legal case that was before court, Anas is bigger than an American celebrity. His reach is far beyond American celebrity. Famous for America. Say ABA or a wrestler now you be na didn't do outside of America, but usually didn't or America happy. But America is not the world. Anas is a figure of international stature. You go anywhere else anywhere, you look at his resume, CV, the accolades that he has received is global. For the President Obama to even mention your name, that whole talk about the damages, I was kind of like, okay, well, that morning, Tuesday morning, I believe, even before the jury, we put on additional evidence. It was basically we played a video that shows that papa no wabobra, no one so much as wabobra.
All aimed at
establishing
the court to
say the only way to stop him from, because wabakot as well be jina as somehow can just to no jina ho. He stands on it. Now no jury decided say enya no kura. Then our position say we all say your friend is saying $4 million is peanuts, for example. It's going to take a lot to deter him.
So on Tuesday, you guys came to court to, as it were, try to convince court to say, Papa ya ojina way, bibia chere say, or ye default, or sika, obetime achia.
No,
what was it?
No, the point is deterrence. It's a.
You are going to talk punitive then.
Punitive. No, it's not. It doesn't sound like it says what it is, but it's more than that. It's called punitive, but the actual test, it's more of. In this case, the position we took was for a deterrent effect.
So on Tuesday, those videos that you played,
it was more. I believe that it was adding more to what was already there, because, like I said, he had already stated say $4 million is peanuts.
Yeah, but so I'm trying to marry.
So on
the
Tuesday,
position.
what we did was there was more evidence supporting that.
That what?
Like statements, like he was making. Yeah, Papa Honorable Kennedy Japan was making. That basically he has money. He has money.
So I'm saying.
Yeah, he's a man of. He's a man of wealth. Or come on, some crana with the court crana. He loses, he can pay you, which means he will do it again.
So on Tuesday, the evidence that you brought sought to convince.
I believe said sought to add on to what was already, we believe was already in evidence.
With the aim of convincing the court that Obetmetia, and what was it?
No. With the aim of establishing, say, the threshold for giving punitive damages exists.
And therefore, whatever amount that was quoted, he could pay.
Yes.
Right.
In terms of the punitives, no, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And we did that. They didn't put up any evidence. They only relied on arguments, So they argued their position. Now, at the end of it, the jury was instructed again, and they went back and they came back and they brought clarification. Say the damages that they gave, on Tuesday, had factored in all of that, and they gave a breakdown of what they saw as this and that, this type of damage, that type of damage, and that type of damage. And they will not, essentially their position was that we will not add any more money to the punitive damages. At this point they believe that enough was enough. I don't know, there's some video circulating. I believe it's reliable. Its source is reliable because I think there's clearance to record, contrary to some. I like to say this at this point. So there's some confusion going on. I've heard some things in the media space. Court, your call hot on the first day. We raised the concern and said there were people who perhaps were there to record without permission. So the judge got up on his feet and said, nobody record. Stop if you are right now. Then he explained, if you want to document any sort of aspect of this case now, you need to go and get permission, right? So the gentleman who we believe had come there to do that, he intelligently went and he got his permit. Now it looks like Onono, he misunderstood, maybe say there was a prohibition on recording and only still pictures will be allowed. So he took still pictures, even though sometimes, I don't know, he had a picture and also a video, right? So he was the person who was taking pictures in the courtroom for the first few days until somebody else came in and now went and got a permit that included audiovisual recording. I will be mounted to a tripod or court to a judge in full glare of the judge, and also was taking still pictures. You understand? And so I'd like to just bring some clarity to that. There's nothing wrong. No one has done anything wrong. Any recording that was done, there's evidence that supports that it was legally done. There's nothing to worry about. Let's deal with what has happened. I believe this case is important in our growth process. Papa be contribute to as a member of parliament for how many years, and this, I believe, this is a part of it. For a huge figure like this to be a defendant in this type of case, that means that there's it is meant for a bigger goal. Because if it was just some Joe Schmo, some guy on the street, no one would be paying attention to it.
But lawyer, I appreciate that you are squeezing time for me to make this happen, and I don't seem to be chiming in or be cutting you in because I'm enjoying the narrative. This will stand the test of time for a longer time. It will be a reference point in terms of the journey that you have taken us through. But I want to understand, do you have judgment? Where we are, what does it mean to the process?
Okay.
Are you taking home 18 million? Are you, all other things being equal, do you sit in a position where you can get more, less? What's going on beyond the
jury verdict?
That's right.
Tuesday. Okay. And Tuesday, when the jury said that, Papa Honorable Kennedy Japan lawyer got on his feet again, and he did two things. The first thing he said, he was moving for a mistrial. Just say because in their view, the jury basically put the cart before the horse, and we take a different position. Say at the West, it's like form over substance, really, or the other way around. But so he asked for a mistrial, and the judge, we show video now around now. There's a video that documents what the judge's decision on that mistrial request was, where the judge just deny mistrial. And it's important to note, say, on that same video, I guess the basis was that the jury was impartial, was unfair. They didn't take everything into consideration, perhaps.
The judge?
No.
The jury?
The lawyer for...
who claimed that the who was unfair.
No. He said he moved for a mistrial based
Yes.
on the fact. So, say jury no XCD instructions no the first time.
That I appreciate.
And he was asking, say, young Bobby Biangu the whole trial in. So there was some back and forth with the judge. After that, we shared a video at some point. The judge, Eka said no, he denied the motion for mistrial because some people are putting that in the media. You and I are in this video. Let's not do that. Let's be factual. It doesn't. We don't get anything from any misstep in this process,
especially when it's coming from the courts, which court has records of what transpired.
But the point I'm trying to make is, we on this side, we don't get any benefit from a misstep in the process. It will only delay what we want, which is justice. And we have every interest to make sure that things are done right and according to law, so that it stands the test of time and scrutiny. And a friend saying, the lawyer moved for that, and for the judge's in his own wisdom, he denied the motion right there and there. It's on video. It's also important to know, say, on that same video, the judge dismissed the jury, term of art, right? Discharged or dismissed, and told them, say, their business in this case is over, because he said by the combined effect of their verdict and their explanation on what they buy in the form of the note, the case is over. In terms of the trial of the case is over. Now, what do you know count? Now, what they count? The denial of mistrial. Now, that means that at this point, absent some other thing that is filed in court, that trial is effectively over, right? Now, that's not to say I some a Twitter, because the same video now, the judge made reference to the fact say at this point, obia e motion be or person or file here. They know what to do. Now, to explain, I think that would answer your question in terms of, do you have judgment, do you not have judgment? So by law in New Jersey, at this point, the plaintiff is supposed to bring in the proposed order for judgment, which is basically a document that reduces the jury's verdict into paper. Judge sign it, and the court in seal atoso.
And that amounts to the judgment?
Yes. Until no ubi jina so akwa kase ubi de okana say okojiska until New Jersey I'm not just within 5 days we'll say you file till we share court docket now and you file till we share court docket more from the 17th now Honorable Kennedy Japan lawyer file the letter no we say yent scan so you call court on the 18th a judge I deal with him and we show video mistrial mbusa na judge deny the next step that is factual like what in the docket and say our side has complied with the 5-day rule, which requires you submit a proposed judgment you draft that reflects what the jury's verdict was in open court, documented by the verdict sheet, and in this case the note we have filed it both sides. The other side has been served. The judge is on notice, the court is on notice, and the public, anyone who wants to go and look at it, it's there. You can go and see it.
Maybe we would close the interview on that chapter, but let me go back to what I think has become the central focus of the narrative in the media space. The question of the mistrial motion that was filed by the...
It was never...
Okay, so what happened? I just want clarity there. Okay. What is it about? Where are we on that?
Okay. So obviously, like I said, let's all be factual. And let's not distort MOBR. Let's take this opportunity to educate those who don't have the luxury of understanding these things, or let's take this opportunity to say dispassionately and transparently and honestly educate because maybe one day someone will rely on this education to save their life or to fight for certain rights that they may have that someone is infringing on. And let's not, I'm not about, and I know say Nipan don't want, that's how they are. Maybe there might be some confusion among here. Okay. Say okay, if you look back to the video now, I'm making reference to now Judge Nekenkai, and on the end of it, he invites both sides. Says, "Oh, motion bia, open say file here. You know what to do now. You know what to do. Then just say, there are certain triggers that need a Brony friend condition precedent that must be satisfied. Once those are satisfied, it opens the door for you to do these things, take the next steps, which are what are known as pre-trial motions. Sorry, post-trial motions. Now, post-trial motions, what are some of them? Your judgment notwithstanding the verdict. Your motion for new trial, which is sort of like the motion for mistrial, right? And I will motion to alter or amend the judgment. And I will the motion for remittiture now. I've talked about say Montesono, right? And there's also a motion for relief from judgment. And I will motion for reconsideration. And there's also a motion for stay of execution. And I will motion for post-judgment discovery. So what you here? Okay. So let me expand on some of these motions now, possibly available to both sides. Like I said, there was something regarding the Swale count now. It was struck out. We can file a motion pertaining to that, which will be a post-trial motion, right? Because he did assembly, and I will be filing a motion and say, so, and I say, and find him back, which can all, reverse some of these steps that have been taken, right? And that's one. But so for example, there was a motion. So okay, talking about triggers, condition precedent. Yama will see and send to me to an amount, right? And then there's also a time frame within which, after the trigger and as the satisfaction of the condition precedent, also to one amount. So when to one amount, right? And for example, a motion for judgment notwithstanding the verdict, right? That means jury now they have given their verdict. It has not been reduced to judgment, right? And judge find your paper with Mark as evidence, and the Akojis will be one answer. You saw no as tabo, there too will be property, so right? But I know of condition precedent. At first, no answer no with me, I can say yembo verdict in Guno. Even before it reaches judgment form, you need to have raised that on your feet in court. Now I know it's only available by motion practice as a renewal, where New Jersey is specific emra, right? Under Rule 442 of New Jersey Rules of Civil Procedure. In this case, based on what transpired in court, video, so there was no issue. Nobody raised this judgment notwithstanding the verdict. For your friend JNOV. So there's no condition precedent for anyone filing that because it was never raised. That's the only circumstance I would make you during the verdict. I told Chenkran San I drew judgment. So I hope you are following what I said. Okay. In this case, I don't think that's an issue because no one brought that up. And that's only available for filing subsequently, as a renewal of a motion. So waka. Anna who renew with legal arguments and motion paper, right? So the judge can say motions be who be among file. I believe say we no because there was no condition precedent hasn't been satisfied. Now, if it had been satisfied, I'm right to say within 20 days after you first made it, you need to put it in writing. That's not.
It's not an area to go to.
It's not applicable in this under these circumstances. Now, motion for new trial also it happened after judgment, right? And also it must be filed 20 days after the judgment. The judgment will be the trigger for filing it within 20 days. I think say mistrial normal kekano. Now
that's actually what my interest is.
Mistrial normal what in the media, I think say that's mostly what that is going towards. Now, but
so the motion for
remember, I said you can do that in open court, and get it ruled on if you canvass your position and it's appropriate. Now, in this case, I remember the judge actually said something when the back and forth was going on. Say it's inappropriate, really, at this time. If there's anything that the Honorable Kennedy Japan's legal team might want to do, I think that would be possibly something that the Mistra normal Canada probably will be what they will be say a motion for a new trial. And they have to convince the court say there was a problem with the whole trial. No more can say perhaps the jury put the cart before the horse, a ban of specific issue of punitive damages now. They are trying to say young throw away proverbially, throw the baby away with the bath water.
see why I seem to have an interest in the issue of the motion for mistrial. And it say, Matiti, say, you made reference to the video in which the judge seemed to have dismissed it.
Yeah, he dismissed it.
Yeah.
When they made it as an oral motion, it was dismissed.
Okay, so the oral motion is akin, if you like, to a written motion. Is it the same thing?
Yes. If you make it and you establish it, the judge can grant it right there and then.
Okay, so once.
But it was just a video not to cut you off. The judge also made some comments. I just said, "Obo jury nabaso." Say you have been an independent jury. It's on the video.
I remember.
So if the judge takes that position, say the jury is independent, it's going to be a Herculean task to sort of get him to think say the jury had.
So once the judge dismissed the oral motion for
that's the end of that.
That ends it.
Yeah, that ends it. But like I said, no, Bibiana Yamra, it could have been made there in rule because it's a matter of the Constitution. So basically, you didn't get your due in court, or something happened so bad that it's a miscarriage of justice. Court, supervisory jurisdiction, they can rectify or remediate that instantly, right? But in this case, the comment that judge passed here, and the argument that was canvassed, I believe, they went towards the independence of the jury. The jury basically did not like him. Or they were, I don't know exactly, I don't want to quote the lawyer, but it was along those lines. And the judge felt at that point, there was no grounds for that. But the judge, I think, said being fair, and said, when he says emotions now, lawyers know what to do. So
I'm enjoying the discussion, but we have to go for want of time.
Okay.
However, the judge, dismissed the oral motion for
mistrial.
It means effectively say the judge say more assembly go and file a motion. Omo on the side of Honorable Kennedy Japan, any who kwenya e wo mremu say omo beka so wo ye no kan and a judge in no can say on yate it says say yakotro aside the aba. No.
Like I said, unlike JNOV, which is judgment notwithstanding the verdict, and no verdict to good crown sana, it is reduced to judgment. This mistrial motion can be filed after judgment. Omo Akunya say they can file that. So
when you say after judgment, what do you mean? After the judge signed and sealed?
Yeah, has reduced it to judgment. Yes.
Okay. And don't you think that's where the issue is, to the extent that you keep hearing say there's this motion for mistrial?
Well, I think
it's not ended, and we are going to still.
Yeah. I think
I keep hearing this that much in the media space.
Yeah. I think so. It's just people trying to spin the narrative. For us, the most important thing is the jury decided, say, the Honorable Kennedy Japan is liable for defaming Anas Aremeyaw Anas. That is why he has subsequently put out his trademark videos. One of the latest one speaking on this issue, because to him, that issue of the whether or not he has been defamed has been put to bed. He is of the strong conviction, said there was nothing that was done that is going to reverse that part of the ruling. The damages side, any lawyer worth his salt understands that can be played around with. And I'm not going to go into the specifics of what I see as a professional, but it's not something that we are okay with, whether it's reduced or whether we have an opportunity to even argue for more, because punitive damages in this state are based on compensatory damages and can go as high as 5 times the amount of compensatory damages. So either way, that will be known as an Adika IDB. And the number is not really something that we are like zoned in. We just report what is factual. And on the day that video was released by Anas Aremeyaw Anas, the fact of the matter is the jury awarded 18 million United States dollars.
So back and forth. In the end, what? As we wrap up.
Oh, in the end, we have, like I said, we have filed our request for judgment within the 5 days. which is within the rules. We'll check a court docket. Now that's what the next legal step that's verifiable by anybody who wants to verify this. That's the next step that has been taken. It's now the prerogative of the judge either to contact both sides and to make changes to it until it reflects the true occurrences or the true decision of the jury. And at which point, anyone who wants to launch an attack on it can launch an attack on it, either like I said, by asking for a motion for a new trial or mistrial, which we would respond to accordingly within the time frames. People are saying throwing stuff out there that 30 days. That's not true. After the judgment, there's a 20-day window within which anybody who wants to file any type of these motions. This is New Jersey law. Anybody who wants to file any type of these motions has 20 days from the trigger, which is the judgment. The only way they could have set aside the verdict, the jury's decision, is a JNOV, judgment notwithstanding the verdict, which has not the condition precedent for doing that doesn't exist. The jury's verdict is, I believe, is going to stand subject to the judge's power to do a remittiture. The judge can do that even before the judgment. In basically, if he sees it as something that's required by law, or law calls upon him to kind of work it out, he can, because he has supervisory jurisdiction over all of what's going on. We are not really feeding into the numbers. The fact is that our client was factual in his release, and which is that the jury awarded a verdict that included an $18 million damage component. That's all we have said. Anything else is a play upon words, maybe perhaps to spin the issue, or for political reasons or whatever. But it's neither here nor there. We are not concerned with that. Like I said, the main focus in this for our client is to clear his name, and which is what he has said in that video. So once again, this is a civil matter. It's an opportunity for everybody to learn something. Let's all watch our mouths, what we say about each other, as we try to build Ghana into the country that I believe is going to be in the future.
As you count, you guys, as you count your chicken before they are hatched, what are you guys thinking about? How to?
We are not counting.
What to do with the money? 18 million is good money. Good money. 18 million American dollars. It's good money.
Well, we are still a long way from actually seeing any money.
It's coming home.
Oh, well, no. We are not engaged in that. Like I said, no. Our client is not someone who share a Afromosis. Afromosis. It's not someone who is into material things. So the money is good. It will do all of us a lot of good in terms of what we want to do, in terms of building Ghana, the media space, giving more people the opportunity to get world-class access to information and education, to raise the bar so that we can all hold each other accountable in a country that we all call home, which is Ghana. But the most important thing is he was already working. He was already building a name for himself, which he believes would lead to him reaching the apex of his earning capacity. Without this, he's never interested in this for the money. It's more about the vindication of his name, which is why, even though he as a lawyer understands all what I've just explained, he still went out and announced that. And you have to note, he didn't even go on Thursday and did it. He waited for Tuesday to pass before he said, "Look, my name has been cleared and the jury has made this decision." Now, what happens after an year? That's separate. Whether it's reduced.
I call him the bad boy of journalism. His resolve, his determination, his avowed commitment to championing the cause that he believes in, and from how far he has come in the midst of the storm, and how rocky and zigzag the journey has been. Regardless, he keeps afloat, and I think you feel very proud to be representing such a person who doesn't give up easily. Because tell you what, I sincerely thought that after the setbacks from the Ghanaian courts, and then going forward, what a task it was going to be like to do this case here in the US, he was going to throw in the towel and say, "Look, life goes on." But here we are, thanks to persistence and all of that. You must be proud to be representing him.
Yes, absolutely. I'm very proud to be associated with Aremeyaw Anas. Because contrary to what people say about the way he goes about his work, no one has won in court against him to say no, it's not legal. I happen to come from a criminal defense background initially in my career. I understand what entrapment is and what it's not. What he does is not entrapment. First of all, he's not a state actor. You need to be a state actor to entrap anyone. Now, and also it has gone before our courts, the issue of whether or not, you see, entrapment has two components. It needs to be a state actor, and then there's a question of whether or not there was some evidence that this person is predisposed, the person, the target of the investigation, is predisposed to a certain conduct. Because that needs to exist before you can even, if you don't eat mango, you will never be really, it's very unlikely that you can be tricked with mango. Someone can perhaps poison you with mango if you don't eat mango. They have to know that you like mango too. So, as much as people don't agree with it, we live in a legal dispensation where the law is a compromise position between how we all feel and what will make society stable and reasonable. And it's reasonable, and that's what the law is. It's, until a court of law says that this is wrong. And I believe Ibrahim Sanidara, I would like to commend him on that. He took that issue to court, and the court ruled that, there's some argument that he doesn't do what he does in the public interest. Well, someone could take him back to court on that, and let's see how that plays out. If it plays out that way, then that's the way it plays out.
Lawyer Selasi Adika, a member of the team that represented and is representing Anas, in this case against Kennedy Ohene Japan. Let me appreciate the time, the opportunity. We are thankful. We are grateful for this exclusive interview. I just wish we were never going to end. But even as we draw the curtains, what was the last time you spoke to Anas?
Oh, we're in constant contact. We spoke with him, I think, a few minutes before I came on air.
And how does he feel?
He's just the same person. He's even keel. Like I say, he's very mature. So he's happy. His name has been vindicated by these proceedings, and we're going to take everything that happens next as they come. Like I said, we've always remained civil. There's nothing personal. We just needed to enforce his rights.
Let me thank you for the opportunity once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wish you for your damasi. Say, Manya Emre, Ede Atrain, Yakasano Awa.
Is the camera off?
Yakasano Awa. Ye Jenny no aye tin. Commano and Comana, Miana me din commano. Me de, Masumia Michi, Mimpesame so. It's answer way exclusive to us. And seminal be a freedom Yako Yaninano and Matiano here live on LYB 24 TV and radio. We are located in the United States. We are in the city of Columbus in Ohio. A free and Adika, once the chapter has been opened, we are going to be coming away with everything Africa, everything Ghana, everything news, and I'm sure that you are going to help you to let this come to stay. Once again, let me thank you and appreciate you for the opportunity and the time. Bye-bye.
Are we off? Camera off.
Yeah, we are off.
Okay. It's no big deal.